Lightning cracked across the Upper East Side as Anna tied her apron for the third double shift this week. The upscale diner, Lawrence, wasn't her dream job, but dreams didn't pay NYU tuition. At 19, she'd learned that survival came before fairy tales. Table 7's getting impatient. Marcus, the night manager, called out. Some tech hotshot. Keeps checking his watch like time owes him money. Anna glanced through the kitchen window. Rain hammered the glass, turning the city into watercolor smears of neon and shadow. Most customers had fled the storm, leaving the diner half empty. Perfect for tips, terrible for her rent. She grabbed her notepad and pushed through the swinging doors. The man at table 7 looked like he'd stepped out of a Fortune magazine cover shoot. Mid-20s, sharp jawline. Expensive suit that probably cost more than her semester tuition. His dark hair was perfectly styled despite the rain, and when he looked up, his eyes held the kind of cold confidence that came from never hearing the word no. Finally, he said, not looking away from his phone, I was beginning to think this place had forgotten how to serve customers. Anna forced a smile. She'd dealt with entitled jerks before. Sorry for the wait. What can I get you? Surprise me. He leaned back with a smirk that made her skin crawl. Actually, let's make this interesting. I have a proposition. Every instinct screamed at her to walk away, but her mother's medical bills back in Ohio had other plans. I'm listening. You seem sharper than the usual waitstaff here. His tone dripped condescension. So here's my challenge. Solve my riddle, and I'll tip you $1,000. Fail, and you'll have to admit you're just another waitress stuck in the grind. The diner went silent. Other customers turned to stare. Anna felt heat rise in her cheeks, not from embarrassment, but from rage. $1,000 would cover her textbooks for next semester. It would mean not choosing between groceries and electricity. But his smug expression made her want to throw the money back in his perfect face. What makes you think I need your games? She asked quietly. Because girls like you always do. His smile widened. Unless you're afraid? Anna thought about her father's construction business in Ohio, the one that had collapsed 2 years ago, forcing her family into poverty. She thought about her mother's cancer treatments, draining what little savings they had left. She thought about the scholarship application she'd submitted last week, knowing dozens of richer students would get chosen instead. Then she looked at this arrogant stranger who thought money could buy humiliation. Give me the riddle. The storm outside seemed to pause. Lightning illuminated the windows as Ethan Cole, though she didn't know his name yet, prepared to deliver the challenge that would change both their lives forever. What neither of them knew was that his company had already destroyed her world once. And in 3 months, when she discovered that truth, everything hanging between them in this moment would either transform into something beautiful or explode into pieces too sharp to ever put back together. Before we go deeper into this incredible story, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. This tale gets more shocking with every chapter, and you won't want to miss what happens when Anna solves his riddle. Ethan Cole had humiliated Harvard graduates with this riddle. He'd watched Wall Street executives crumble under pressure, their confidence evaporating like morning mist. But as he looked at the 19-year-old waitress standing before him, something in her steel gray eyes made him pause. She wasn't trembling. She wasn't begging. She was calculating. Here's how this works, Ethan said, loud enough for the entire diner to hear. He wanted an audience for her inevitable failure. I'll give you one riddle. You get one chance. No help. No looking it up on your phone. Just you, your brain, and 30 seconds. Anna's fingers tightened around her notepad. Around them, conversations died. The elderly couple at table 3 leaned forward. The businessman by the window put down his newspaper. Even Marcus emerged from the kitchen, sensing drama. And when I can't solve it? Anna asked, though her voice held no defeat. When you can't solve it, Ethan corrected, you'll announce to everyone here that you're just another small-town girl who thought she could play in the big leagues. That you're nothing special. The words hit harder than he'd intended. Something flickered across Anna's face. Not shame, but recognition. As if she'd heard similar words before. Fine, she said. But when I solve it, you don't just tip me $1,000. You apologize to every service worker you've ever treated like dirt. Ethan's eyebrows rose. The girl had spine. Deal. He stood up, straightening his suit jacket. The movement was theatrical, designed to intimidate. In boardrooms, it made million-dollar deals crumble. Here, In this modest diner with its checkered floors and vintage posters, it felt smaller somehow. "Listen carefully," he began, his voice carrying the same tone he used to crush competitors. "A man lives on the 20th floor of an apartment building. Every morning, he takes the elevator down to the ground floor. When he comes home, he takes the elevator to the 10th floor and walks the rest of the way, except on rainy days, when he takes the elevator all the way to the 20th floor. What?" Silence stretched across the diner like a held breath. Ethan had seen this riddle destroy confidence in seconds. It required logical thinking, spatial reasoning, and the ability to think outside conventional assumptions. Most people got tangled in irrelevant details about exercise or preference. Anna closed her eyes for exactly 3 seconds. When she opened them, they held something that made Ethan's chest tighten unexpectedly. Not fear, not confusion, certainty. "He's too short to reach the button for the 20th floor, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the room. "The only buttons he can reach are up to the 10th floor. But on rainy days, he carries an umbrella, so he can use it to press the higher button." The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan felt his world tilt. Not because she'd solved it, though that was shocking enough, but because of how she'd solved it. No hesitation, no second-guessing. She'd cut through the misdirection like a surgeon's blade, seeing the simple truth hidden beneath complexity. "That's..." he started, then stopped. For the first time in years, Ethan Cole was speechless. The diner erupted. The elderly couple started clapping. Marcus hooped from behind the counter. The businessman actually stood up, grinning like he'd witnessed a miracle. But Anna wasn't celebrating. She was studying Ethan's face with those sharp gray eyes, seeing something there that made her expression shift from triumph to curiosity. "The $1,000, she said quietly, cutting through the noise. Ethan reached for his wallet automatically, but his hands felt clumsy. He pulled out 10 crisp $100 bills and placed them on the table. The money sat there between them like a bridge neither of them knew how to cross. Anna looked at the bills for a long moment. Around them, the celebration continued, but it felt distant now, muted. Then she did something that would haunt Ethan's dreams for months. She slid the money back across the table. Most people crumble under pressure like this. Subscribe before you find yourself in Anna's position. "I don't need your games," Anna said, her voice carrying a quiet power that silenced the room again. "I came to New York to outsmart men like you, not serve them." The words hit Ethan like lightning strikes. Every woman in his world wanted his money, his connections, his influence. They smiled and agreed, and played along with whatever game he set up. This 19-year-old waitress had just rejected $1,000 to make a point. As she turned to walk away, her uniform pristine despite the chaos around her, Ethan felt something crack inside his chest. Not his pride. That was already shattered on the diner floor. Something deeper. Something that had been frozen for so long he'd forgotten it existed. Anna looked at him for 3 seconds before she walked away. Then her lips curved into a smile that would change everything. But she had no idea that the man whose world she'd just turned upside down was about to turn hers inside out. Ethan Cole had built an empire by reading people. Weakness, greed, desperation. He could spot them across a boardroom and exploit them within minutes. But as Anna Miller walked away from his table, leaving $1,000 untouched, he realized he'd just met someone completely unreadable. And it terrified him. "Sir." Marcus approached cautiously, eyeing the abandoned money. "Should I?" "Leave it," Ethan said, his voice hoarse. He couldn't take his eyes off Anna as she moved through the diner, checking on other customers like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just performed the equivalent of a magic trick that had left him questioning everything he thought he knew about people. The elderly couple at table 3 flagged her down. Ethan watched as Anna's entire demeanor shifted. The steel in her eyes softened into genuine warmth as she refilled their coffee and asked about their grandson's graduation. With them, she wasn't performing. She was just real. When had he last met someone real? "That was incredible, honey," the elderly woman said, loud enough for half the diner to hear. "Standing up to him like that. Reminded me of myself at your age." Anna's cheeks flushed pink. "Thank you, Mrs. Chun, but I should get back to work." "Nonsense. That man learned something tonight, whether he knows it or not." Ethan's jaw tightened. Learned something? He was Ethan Cole. He'd graduated summa cum laude from MIT, built a tech company worth $2 billion, and had been featured on Forbes 30 Under 30 3 years running. What could a teenage waitress possibly teach him? But his hands were still shaking. Anna returned to his table, notepad ready. Will you be ordering dinner, or should I bring your check? Her tone was professional, courteous, as if the last 10 minutes had never happened. As if she hadn't just dismantled his ego with surgical precision. Why? The word escaped before he could stop it. Why what? Why didn't you take the money? Anna set down her notepad and looked at him. Really looked at him. For the first time since he'd walked in. Her gray eyes held no malice, no judgment. Just a quiet sadness that made his chest ache. Because you weren't offering me money, she said. You were buying permission to feel superior. And I'm not for sale. The words hit him like a physical blow. Every corporate acquisition, every hostile takeover, every deal he'd ever made. Hadn't they all been variations of the same thing? Buying permission to feel superior? You don't know anything about me, he said, but the protest sounded weak even to his own ears. I know enough. Anna picked up the $1,000 and held it out to him. You came in here tonight expecting to humiliate a stranger for sport. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. Ethan stared at the money, then at her face. In 3 years of running his company, no one had ever spoken to him like this. His board members fawned over his every decision. His employees laughed at jokes that weren't funny. Even his ex-girlfriend had agreed with opinions she privately called ridiculous. This girl was treating him like a person, not a bank account or a networking opportunity or a stepping stone to success. Like a flawed, complicated, deeply human person who had just made a mistake. Keep it, he said quietly. What? The money. Keep it. He stood up, dropping another 100 on the table. For dinner I didn't order, and conversation I didn't deserve. Anna looked confused for the first time all evening. I don't understand. Neither do I. He pulled on his coat, movements sharp with agitation. That's the problem. As he reached the door, her voice stopped him. Mister? He turned back. She was still holding the money, her expression unreadable again. Cole. Ethan Cole. Recognition flickered in her eyes, but not the starstruck awe he usually saw. Something else. Something that looked almost like disappointment. Well, Mr. Cole, she said, setting the bills on the table with deliberate care. Next time you want to prove you're better than someone, try proving you're better than yourself. The door chimed as he pushed into the storm. Rain soaked through his $1,000 suit within seconds, but he barely noticed. Her words echoed in his head, mixing with the sound of thunder and his own ragged breathing. Try proving you're better than yourself. When was the last time he'd tried to be better? When was the last time he'd done anything that wasn't calculated to increase his wealth, expand his influence, or stroke his ego? As he walked through the rain toward his waiting car, Ethan Cole realized something that would change his life forever. He wanted to see Anna Miller again. Not to humiliate her, not to prove a point. He wanted to understand how a 19-year-old waitress had managed to see straight through him when everyone else only saw what he wanted them to see. But first, he had some research to do. 3 days later, Anna was beginning to think she'd dreamed the whole thing. The story had spread through Lawrence like wildfire. Marcus had told it to the morning shift, who'd told it to the lunch crew, who'd told it to anyone who'd listen. By Monday, Anna had become something of a local legend, the waitress who'd made a billionaire speechless. But legends didn't pay rent. Table 12 wants extra foam, called Sophia, the other evening server, rushing past with a tray of desserts. And Table 6 is asking for you specifically. Says he heard about the Riddle thing. Anna sighed. The attention was flattering, but it wasn't helping her bank account. She'd picked up an extra shift at the campus bookstore and spent her lunch break filling out scholarship applications. But NYU's spring tuition deadline loomed like a storm cloud. She was refilling salt shakers when Marcus appeared at her elbow, looking nervous. Anna, there's someone here to see you. If it's another reporter, I already told you. It's not a reporter. Marcus's voice was strange. It's him. Anna's stomach dropped. She followed Marcus's gaze toward the entrance, where Ethan Cole stood in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than her car. But something was different. The arrogant swagger was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like uncertainty. What does he want? She whispered. To talk to you. Privately. Anna's first instinct was to refuse. She had work to do, customers to serve, a life to live that didn't revolve around billionaire tech moguls and their ego trips. But curiosity won. She found him waiting by the host station, studying the framed reviews on the wall like they held secrets to the universe. "Mr. Cole." Her voice was carefully neutral. "Back for more riddles?" He turned, and Anna was startled by the change in his face. The cold confidence had been replaced by something more complicated, more human. "Actually, I came to offer you a job." Anna blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "A position at my company, Cole Technologies." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "Junior analyst position. Good salary, full benefits, tuition reimbursement." The card felt heavier than it should in her hands. Cole Technologies, she'd heard of it, of course. Everyone had. They'd revolutionized cloud computing and made their founder a billionaire before his 25th birthday. "Why?" she asked, the same question she'd asked him 3 nights ago. "Because you're smart. Smarter than half the people I've hired from Harvard and MIT combined." His voice was quieter now, less performative. "And because I think I misjudged you." Anna looked at the card again. The salary listed was more than she'd make in 2 years at Lawrence. It would solve her tuition problems, help with her mother's medical bills, maybe even let her send money home to help her father get back on his feet. But something felt wrong. "What's the catch?" she asked. "Ever walked into a world where you don't belong? Subscribe so you're never caught unprepared. No catch. You work hard, learn fast, and help my company grow. In return, we help you finish school and build a career." It sounded too good to be true. In Anna's experience, things that sounded too good to be true usually were. "I need to think about it." Ethan nodded, but she caught a flicker of something in his eyes. Disappointment? Or relief? "Take your time. The offer stands." As he turned to leave, Anna called after him. "Mr. Cole, can I ask you something?" He stopped, waited. "That night, were you testing me? Or were you just being cruel?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Anna watched emotions flicker across Ethan's face. Shame, regret, something that might have been longing. "Both," he said finally. "And I'm not proud of either." After he left, Anna stood in the empty lobby holding his business card and wondering if she was about to make the biggest mistake of her life, or the smartest decision she'd ever made. The card listed an address in Midtown Manhattan, where glass towers scraped the sky and people like her were invisible, where Ethan Cole ruled an empire built on algorithms and ambition. Anna thought she was just taking a job to pay for school. She had no idea she was walking into a trap that would change everything she thought she knew about love, betrayal, and the price of forgiveness. But first, she had to survive her first day in a world where billion-dollar deals were made over lunch, and one wrong move could destroy everything she'd worked for. The hunter had become the hunted, and Anna Miller was about to discover she was far more dangerous prey than either of them had ever imagined. Anna's first day at Cole Technologies began with a mistake that nearly ended her career before it started. The glass tower on Fifth Avenue stretched 43 floors into the Manhattan sky, its chrome and steel facade reflecting the morning sun like a mirror. Anna stood on the sidewalk, craning her neck up at the building that housed one of America's most powerful tech companies, and felt like Alice about to tumble down the rabbit hole. Her reflection in the lobby's polished marble showed a girl trying too hard to belong. The blazer she'd bought at a thrift store looked professional enough, but next to the Armani-clad executives streaming past, she felt like a costume party crasher. "You must be Anna Miller." She turned to find a man in his 30s approaching, his smile warm but his eyes calculating. Medium height, perfectly styled blonde hair, and the kind of expensive watch that cost more than most people's cars. "Marcus Hendricks, Ethan's assistant. He's waiting for you upstairs." The elevator ride to the 38th floor passed in uncomfortable silence. Marcus kept glancing at her sideways, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Anna focused on her reflection in the polished doors and tried not to think about how many zeros were probably in the paychecks of everyone around her. "Word of advice," Marcus said as they reached their floor. "Ethan's different since that night at the diner. More distracted. Some people are already talking." "Talking about what?" "About why he hired a waitress with no tech experience for a junior analyst position that usually requires a computer science degree." The elevator doors opened onto a world that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of Central Park. Sleek workstations hummed with activity as developers typed code that would be used by millions of people. Digital displays showed real-time data from servers around the globe. and standing by the windows, silhouetted against the morning sky, was Ethan Cole. He turned as they approached, and Anna felt that same electric jolt she'd experienced in the diner. But here, in his element, Ethan looked different. More powerful. More dangerous. Anna, welcome to Cole Technologies. His handshake was firm, professional, but his eyes held something warmer, something that made her pulse quicken despite herself. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Cole. It's Ethan. We don't do formal here. He gestured toward the bustling workspace. What do you think? Anna looked around, taking in the casual dress code, the collaborative energy, the ping-pong table in the break area. It's not what I expected. What did you expect? Stuffier suits. More glass offices. Less. She searched for the word, humanity. Ethan's smile was genuine. We work hard, but we try to remember we're building technology for people, not just profit margins. That's refreshing. Is it? His voice carried a note she couldn't identify. Most people assume I'm only interested in money. Before Anna could respond, a woman approached their group. Tall, stunning, with the kind of polished confidence that came from winning at everything she'd ever attempted. Her red hair was pulled back in a sleek bun, and her designer dress probably cost more than Anna's entire wardrobe. Ethan, the woman said, her voice honey smooth. Aren't you going to introduce me to our new intern? Riley Morrison, meet Anna Miller. Anna's our new junior analyst. Anna, Riley heads our business development division. Riley's handshake was a fraction too tight, her smile a degree too bright. How interesting. I don't think we've ever hired anyone without a technical background before. What's your expertise, Anna? The question was a trap, and they both knew it. Anna could feel Ethan's attention sharpen, could sense the subtle shift in the surrounding conversations as other employees tuned in. Problem solving, Anna said simply. Pattern recognition. Understanding what people really need instead of what they say they want. How quaint. Riley's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. And where did you develop these skills? Harvard? MIT? Stanford? Lawrence Diner? Table 7, specifically. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, unexpectedly, Ethan laughed. Not the polite chuckle Anna expected, but a genuine sound of delight. I like that answer, he said, and the tension in the room shifted. Riley, would you mind showing Anna to her workstation? I have a meeting in 10. As Ethan walked away, Anna caught Riley's expression in her peripheral vision. The polished smile had vanished, replaced by something colder. Something that looked like calculation. Right this way, Riley said, her voice saccharine. Let me introduce you to your new colleagues. The next 4 hours were a masterclass in subtle workplace warfare. Riley introduced Anna to everyone as the waitress Ethan hired on a whim, made sure to mention Anna's lack of formal education in every conversation, and somehow managed to schedule Anna's first project meeting during her lunch break, while neglecting to mention the time change. But Anna had survived 2 years of double shifts, impossible customers, and college applications while supporting her family. Corporate mean girls were child's play compared to keeping her mother's medical insurance active while maintaining a 3.8 GPA. By evening, when most of the office had emptied out, Anna was still at her desk, working through financial projections for a new software launch. The numbers told a story. User acquisition costs were climbing faster than revenue growth, suggesting the marketing strategy needed adjustment. You're still here. Anna looked up to find Ethan approaching her desk, his tie loosened and his usually perfect hair slightly mussed. He looked more human somehow, less like the untouchable billionaire from the magazines. The Peterson Industries analysis. I wanted to finish it tonight. Ethan glanced at her screen, then did a double take. You found the acquisition cost problem. It's pretty obvious once you look at the quarterly trends. The current strategy is unsustainable. Our marketing team spent 3 weeks on that analysis and missed what you caught in one afternoon. Anna shrugged. Sometimes an outside perspective helps. Ethan pulled up a chair next to her desk. Talk to me about your recommendations. For the next hour, they discussed market strategies, customer retention models, and growth projections. Anna found herself forgetting who Ethan was, forgetting the intimidating office and the hostile colleagues. He was sharp, insightful, and genuinely interested in her ideas. When he challenged her assumptions, it felt like intellectual sparring rather than condescension. You realize you just redesigned our entire Q2 marketing strategy, Ethan said finally. I just pointed out some inefficiencies. Anna. His voice was softer now, and when she looked up, his eyes held something that made her breath catch. Why did you really take this job? The question hung between them like a bridge she wasn't sure she wanted to cross. Anna thought about lying, about giving him the safe answer about career opportunities and professional growth. Instead, she told him the truth. Because my mother needs surgery and my father's business never recovered from bankruptcy, and I'm tired of choosing between textbooks and groceries. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. What happened to your father's business? Corporate acquisition. Some big company bought out all the local contractors in our area, then shut down the smaller operations. Dad went from running his own construction company to working day labor for minimum wage. Anna didn't see Ethan's face go pale, didn't notice the way his hands clenched into fists. She was looking at her computer screen, lost in memories of her father coming home covered in drywall dust, too proud to admit he was struggling. Anna, Ethan said, his voice strange. What was the name of your father's company? Miller Construction. What? When she looked up, Ethan's expression was unreadable. Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt? Fear? Recognition? No reason, he said, but his voice sounded hollow. It's getting late. You should head home. As Anna packed up her things, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in those final moments. The easy camaraderie they'd shared while discussing business strategies felt fragile now, like glass about to shatter. She was gathering her coat when Ethan's voice stopped her. Anna, tomorrow, would you like to grab coffee? Before work, I mean. There's a place around the corner that makes excellent cappuccinos. The invitation was casual, but something in his tone made it feel like more. Like a question that carried weight beyond caffeinated beverages. I'd like that, she said. As she waited for the elevator, Anna caught her reflection in the polished doors again. The girl looking back at her was different from the one who'd arrived that morning. More confident. More hopeful. She thought she was just learning to navigate corporate politics and quarterly projections. She had no idea she was falling in love with the man who destroyed her family. Just when Anna was ready to let her guard down. Fate had other plans. 2 weeks of morning coffee dates had become the brightest part of Anna's days. Ethan wasn't the arrogant billionaire she'd met in the diner anymore. Over lattes and shared pastries, he'd revealed glimpses of someone deeper. He talked about the loneliness of success, about building a company that employed thousands of people he'd never meet. He asked about her family with genuine interest, listened to stories about her mother's garden and her father's stubborn pride with the kind of attention most people reserved for merger negotiations. Anna was falling for him. Not for his money or his power, but for the way his eyes lit up when she challenged his ideas, for the quiet vulnerability he showed only to her, which made what happened at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night so much worse. Anna had stayed late again, working on the Morrison Industries proposal. Riley had accidentally scheduled the presentation for Friday, giving Anna less than 3 days to prepare what should have been a month-long project. It was clearly sabotage, but Anna refused to give her the satisfaction of failure. The office was empty except for security. Even the cleaning crew had finished hours ago. Anna's desk lamp cast a small circle of light in the darkened workspace, her computer screen glowing as she pulled up financial documents and market analysis reports. She was looking for comparative acquisition data when her system prompted her for additional access permissions. The Morrison Industries file was restricted, requiring higher-level clearance than her junior analyst credentials provided. Anna hesitated. She could wait until morning, ask Ethan for access, admit she needed help. But the presentation was Friday, and Riley would be watching for any excuse to declare the project a failure. Anna tried a few workarounds, following digital breadcrumbs through the company's database. Cole Technologies kept meticulous records. Every acquisition, every contract, every business decision Ethan had made since founding the company. That's when she found the folder labeled Strategic Acquisitions 2019 to 2021. Her heart stopped. There, buried among hundreds of corporate deals, was a file that made her hands shake. Ohio Regional Construction Consolidation Project. Anna clicked it open with trembling fingers. The documents spilled across her screen like evidence at a crime scene. Purchase agreements. Market analysis reports. Cost-benefit projections for acquiring and dissolving small regional contractors in Ohio. And there, on page 17 of the implementation summary, she found her father's name. Miller Construction, acquisition completed March 15, 2021. Assets liquidated. Operations terminated per consolidation strategy. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. Anna scrolled through the documents, each page revealing more of the calculated destruction of her father's livelihood. Market saturation analysis. Competition elimination protocols. A neat, corporate sanitized description of how Cole Technologies had systematically bought out every small construction company in 3 Ohio counties, then shut them down to eliminate competition for their smart building division. Her father hadn't failed because of bad business decisions or market forces. He'd been targeted, destroyed, erased from the industry he'd spent 20 years building, not because he was incompetent, but because he was in the way. And the man who'd ordered it, the man she'd been having coffee with every morning for 2 weeks, the man she was falling in love with, was Ethan Cole. Anna's vision tunneled. The office around her seemed to shrink until there was nothing but her computer screen and the devastating truth displayed in neat corporate fonts and sanitized business language. Her father, coming home covered in dust and defeat, unable to look his family in the eye because he thought he'd failed them. Her mother, choosing between cancer treatments and keeping the lights on because they couldn't afford both. Anna herself, working double shifts and applying for scholarships because her family had lost everything. All because of the man who'd been buying her coffee and asking about her dreams. Imagine discovering the person you're falling for destroyed your family. Subscribe before betrayal blindsides you. Anna sat in the darkness for 10 minutes, letting the truth sink into her bones like poison. Every conversation they'd had, every shared laugh, every moment of connection, all of it built on a lie. Not intentional, maybe, but devastating all the same. Ethan had asked about her father's business collapse. He'd listened to her talk about financial struggles with what seemed like genuine empathy. He'd offered her this job, this opportunity, this chance at a better life. But it was all blood money. Every paycheck, every coffee date, every moment of happiness she'd felt in his presence. It was all funded by the destruction of her family. Anna printed the documents with methodical calm. Her hands had stopped shaking, replaced by something colder. Something that felt like steel forming in her chest where her heart used to be. She folded the papers carefully and slipped them into her purse. Then she sat back in her chair and stared at the Manhattan skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Tomorrow, she would confront Ethan Cole with the truth about what his success had cost her family. Tonight, she would mourn the death of something that could have been beautiful. Anna stared at the screen, her heart breaking, but she wasn't broken yet. Anna didn't sleep that night. She sat on her tiny studio apartment's fire escape, watching the sun rise over Manhattan while clutching the printed documents that had shattered her world. Every few minutes, she'd read through them again, hoping to find some mistake, some misunderstanding that would explain away the devastation. But the papers didn't lie. Her father's business was listed alongside dozens of others, all targeted for elimination in what Cole Technologies had called their market optimization strategy. The language was clinical, detached, as if these weren't people's lives being destroyed, just obstacles to be removed. By 8 a.m., Anna had made her decision. She dressed carefully, not in the thrift store blazer she'd been wearing to fit in, but in jeans and the Ohio State sweatshirt her father had given her for her 18th birthday. If Ethan was going to see her break, he was going to see all of her. The small-town girl whose family he'd casually destroyed. The Cole Technologies lobby felt different now. The marble floors and chrome fixtures weren't impressive anymore. They were monuments to the money made from companies like her father's. Every polished surface reflected back the cost of Ethan's empire. Anna bypassed her desk and went straight to Ethan's office. His assistant Marcus started to intercept her, but something in her expression made him step aside. She found Ethan at his standing desk, reviewing quarterly reports with his usual focused intensity. He looked up when she entered, his face breaking into the warm smile that had been melting her defenses for 2 weeks. "Anna, you're early. I was hoping we could. I know what you did." The words came out steady, controlled. Anna set the printed documents on his desk with deliberate precision. Ethan glanced down, and she watched the exact moment recognition hit him. His face went white. "Anna, I can explain. Can you?" She kept her voice level, professional. The same tone she'd used with difficult customers at the diner. "Can you explain why Miller Construction is listed in your acquisition reports?" Can you explain why my father's 20-year-old business was targeted for elimination so your smart building division could dominate the Ohio market? Ethan's mouth opened, closed. For the first time since she'd known him, he was speechless. You asked me what happened to my father's business, Anna continued. You listened to me talk about medical bills and financial struggles and working double shifts to pay for school. You offered me this job out of the goodness of your heart. She leaned forward, her hands flat on his desk. Tell me, Ethan, when you were listening to me cry about my family's bankruptcy, did you remember signing the order that caused it? I didn't know. The words came out as a whisper. Anna, I swear to you, I had no idea Miller Construction was your father's company. The acquisitions were handled by my business development team. I only signed off on the overall strategy. Oh, so you only signed the death warrant. You didn't personally twist the knife. Ethan flinched like she'd slapped him. It wasn't supposed to be personal. We were consolidating the market, creating efficiency. Efficiency. Anna's careful control cracked. My father worked 18-hour days for 20 years building that business. He employed 12 people who had families, mortgages, kids to feed. Your efficiency put them all on unemployment. I know how it looks. Do you? Anna's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. Do you know what it looks like when a proud man has to tell his sick wife they can't afford her medication anymore? Do you know what it sounds like when your father cries in the garage because he thinks no one can hear him? Ethan's face crumpled. Anna, please. I trusted you. The words came out broken, raw. I was falling in love with you. And you're the reason my family lost everything. The silence that followed was deafening. Through the glass walls of Ethan's office, Anna could see employees going about their morning routines, unaware that her world was collapsing 30 feet away. Ethan stood up slowly, his movements careful, like he was approaching a wounded animal. You're right, he said quietly. You're absolutely right. My company destroyed your father's business. I signed the papers that made it happen. And I didn't know, but that doesn't matter, does it? Ignorance doesn't undo the damage. Anna stared at him, surprised by his admission. She'd expected denials, justifications, corporate doublespeak. Not this. I can't change what I did, Ethan continued. I can't give your father back the business he built or erase the pain my decisions caused your family. But I can try to make it right. How? Anna's voice was barely a whisper. How do you make something like this right? I don't know, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying, if you'll let me. Anna looked at him standing there, his perfect composure finally shattered, his eyes filled with genuine remorse. Part of her, the part that had been falling in love with him, wanted to believe in redemption, in second chances, in the possibility that love could overcome anything. But the larger part, the part that had held her family together through bankruptcy and illness and despair, knew better. I can't, she said. I can't look at you without seeing what you cost us. I can't work here, can't pretend that any of this is okay. She turned toward the door, then stopped. Do you realize you destroyed my family's livelihood? Everything I suffered, every choice I had to make, every dream I had to abandon, it all traces back to you. As tears filled Anna's eyes, Ethan made a decision that would cost him everything. But Anna didn't stay to see what it was. She walked out of his office, past the curious stares of his employees, past the monuments to his success built on the rubble of dreams like her father's. She had loved Ethan Cole, and he had been the architect of her family's destruction. Some betrayals were too deep for forgiveness. Some truths were too sharp to survive. The decision that would cost Ethan everything came to him in the empty silence of his office, 30 seconds after Anna walked out of his life. He was going to destroy his own empire to save hers. For 3 days, Ethan didn't sleep. He called emergency board meetings, liquidated personal investments, and made phone calls that would have seemed impossible a week earlier. By Friday morning, his assistant Marcus was fielding calls from financial reporters wanting to know why Cole Technologies stock had dropped 12% overnight. Sir, Marcus said, hovering in the doorway with a tablet full of urgent messages, the board is concerned. Raleigh's been asking questions about your recent decisions, and the investors are. Cancel my afternoon meetings, Ethan interrupted. I'm going to Ohio. Marcus blinked. Ohio? Sir, you have the Peterson Industries presentation at 3 and the quarterly review. Riley can handle Peterson. She's been angling for more responsibility anyway. What Ethan didn't say was that he'd spent the last 72 hours investigating every detail of the Ohio construction consolidation project. What he'd found in his own company's files had made him sick. The acquisition hadn't been a strategic necessity. It had been corporate greed disguised as market optimization. 12 small businesses destroyed. 47 families left without income. Also, Cole Technologies could corner a market worth less than the company made in quarterly interest on their cash reserves. Anna was right. He was a monster. But monsters could evolve if they were willing to pay the price. The flight to Cleveland gave Ethan time to review the dossier his investigators had compiled on Thomas Miller. Anna's father had been more than just another small business owner. He'd been a pillar of his community. Miller Construction had built the local high school's gymnasium, renovated the town library, and donated labor for Habitat for Humanity projects every summer. Ethan had crushed a good man for a rounding error in his quarterly profits. The drive to Anna's hometown took 2 hours through Ohio farmland that looked nothing like Manhattan's steel and glass canyons. Millbrook was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where the biggest building was the grain elevator, and where strangers in $1,000 suits drew stares from every porch. Thomas Miller's current address was a small ranch house on the edge of town. The driveway was cracked, the mailbox tilted, and the lawn needed mowing. This was what Anna had been trying to prevent when she worked double shifts and applied for scholarships. The slow slide from middle-class stability to making ends meet. Ethan sat in his rental car for 10 minutes, gathering courage. Then he walked to the front door and knocked. The man who answered was shorter than Ethan expected, with calloused hands and the kind of tired eyes that came from too many nights worrying about bills. Thomas Miller looked exactly like someone who'd spent 2 years wondering where he'd gone wrong. "Mr. Miller? I'm Ethan Cole. I wonder if we could talk." Recognition flickered across Thomas's face, followed by something harder. "You're Anna's boss." "I was. She quit this week." Thomas stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind him. "What do you want, Mr. Cole?" "To apologize. And to try to make things right." For the next hour, sitting on Thomas Miller's front porch while the sun set over Ohio farmland, Ethan did something he'd never done before. He told the complete truth about his company's actions, accepted full responsibility for the consequences, and offered something that no amount of money could truly provide: genuine accountability. "I can't undo what I did to your business," Ethan said finally, "but I can give you the resources to build something better. Not as charity, but as partnership. I want to invest in Miller Construction 2.0, with you as majority owner and complete operational control." Thomas was quiet for a long time. "Why would you do that?" "Because your daughter taught me what it means to have integrity. And because I love her enough to destroy my own reputation if that's what it takes to earn her forgiveness." "You love Anna?" "More than I thought possible." Thomas studied Ethan's face in the fading light. "She called this week, crying. Said she'd fallen for someone who turned out to be a lie." The words hit Ethan like physical blows. She wasn't wrong. Maybe not. But the man sitting on my porch right now, he doesn't seem like a lie. When everything's falling apart, only prepared people survive. Subscribe for protection, ***. That evening, Ethan checked into the town's only hotel and made the phone call that would change everything. His conversation with the Wall Street Journal lasted 45 minutes. By morning, the business world would know that Ethan Cole had publicly admitted to predatory acquisition practices and pledged to compensate every family affected by his company's Ohio operations. His board would be furious. His stock price would crater. Competitors would circle like sharks, sensing blood in the water. But Anna might finally believe he was serious about redemption. The real shock came when he returned to New York Sunday night. Riley was waiting in his office, surrounded by printouts and financial reports, her usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled. "Ethan, thank God you're back. The Journal article hits tomorrow morning, and we need damage control. I've prepared a statement walking back your comments, explaining that you were under emotional stress." No, Ethan, you can't be serious. You've essentially admitted to corporate malfeasance. The lawsuits alone will bankrupt the company, probably. I know. Ethan sat down heavily in his chair. "I'm prepared for that." Riley stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "This is about her, isn't it? The waitress. You're destroying everything we've built for some girl who... Her name is Anna. And yes, this is about her. It's about doing what's right, even when it costs everything." Right? Riley's voice rose to a near shriek. Right doesn't pay shareholders, Ethan. Right doesn't keep our employees' jobs secure. Right doesn't. Right is why Anna Miller worked double shifts to pay for college while I bought another sports car. Right is why her father cries in his garage while I never think about the people my decisions affect. Ethan stood up, suddenly exhausted. You can fight this if you want, Riley. Call an emergency board meeting, try to have me removed as CEO. But this is happening. I'm going to make things right with the Miller family, even if it destroys everything else. Riley's expression shifted from shock to calculation to something that looked almost like admiration. You really love her. More than this company. More than my reputation. More than anything. But as Ethan prepared for the corporate battle that would define his future, one question haunted him. Would Anna see his efforts as genuine redemption, or just another billionaire trying to buy his way out of consequences? The answer would determine whether love could truly conquer the deepest betrayals. But would Anna see his efforts? Or was it already too late? Anna first learned about Ethan's public confession from her mother's hospital room. She'd been in Ohio for a week, taking emergency leave from her classes to help with her mother's cancer treatment. The chemotherapy was working, but the side effects left Margaret Miller weak and nauseated most days. Anna spent her time reading aloud, bringing iced chips, and trying not to think about the man who'd shattered her heart. Then her father walked into the hospital room with a newspaper and an expression she couldn't read. Anna, honey, we need to talk. Margaret Miller looked up from her hospital bed, her thin face curious despite her exhaustion. What is it, Tom? Thomas sat down heavily in the visitor's chair, the Wall Street Journal folded in his lap. It's about Ethan Cole. Anna's stomach clenched. Dad, I don't want to. He came to see me. The words hung in the sterile hospital air like a challenge. Anna stared at her father, certain she'd misheard. What? 3 days ago? Drove to Millbrook, sat on our front porch, and told me everything. Thomas unfolded the newspaper with careful precision. Then he did this. The headline made Anna's hands shake. Tech CEO admits to predatory business practices, pledges compensation for affected families. Below it was Ethan's photo, not the usual polished corporate headshot, but something more raw. His eyes held the same vulnerability she'd seen in their coffee conversations, but deeper now. Wounded. Anna read the article twice, her heart racing. Ethan hadn't just admitted to the Ohio acquisitions. He'd publicly accepted full responsibility, detailed the human cost of his decisions, and announced a $50 million fund to compensate affected families. Cole Technologies' stock had plummeted. The board was calling for his resignation. Legal experts predicted bankruptcy within months. He was destroying everything to make amends. Why? Anna whispered. Because he loves you, Margaret said softly from her hospital bed. And because he knows what real integrity looks like now. Anna looked at her mother, pale from chemo, but smiling with the kind of wisdom that came from 40 years of marriage to a good man. Mom, you don't understand. He's the reason we lost the business, yes. But he's also the reason your father's going to have a better one. Thomas pulled out a thick envelope. Partnership agreement. Miller Construction gets full operational control, startup capital, and contracts with Cole Technologies for the next 5 years. Not charity, business. He wants to hire our workers back, rebuild what we lost. Anna stared at the documents, her mind reeling. This doesn't change what he did. No, Thomas agreed. It doesn't. But it changes who he is now. That evening, Anna walked through Millbrook's downtown, past the empty storefront that used to house Miller Construction's offices. The for lease sign was faded now, a monument to dreams that seemed impossible to reclaim. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sophia, her friend from Lawrence. Did you see the news? Your billionaire's getting crucified online. Riley Morrison's all over TV saying he had a breakdown. Anna Googled Riley's interviews, watching with growing unease as Ethan's former business partner painted him as unstable, emotional, unfit to run a corporation. The media was eating it up. The story of an arrogant billionaire's spectacular downfall was too good to resist. But Anna saw something the reporters missed. In the blurry photos of Ethan leaving Cole Technologies headquarters, in the brief video of him avoiding questions outside his apartment building, she recognized the man who'd stayed late to review her marketing analysis. The one who'd asked about her dreams over morning coffee. He was sacrificing everything, and she was the only person who could save him. The realization hit her like lightning. Anna was back at the hospital by 9 p.m., finding her parents watching the late news coverage of Cole Technologies' board meeting. Riley Morrison was being interviewed via satellite, her perfect red hair and designer suit a stark contrast to Ethan's rumpled appearance in the background footage. "Dad," Anna said, settling into the visitor's chair. "The partnership offer, is it real? Not guilt, money, or pity, but a genuine business opportunity. Better than anything we had before. Your boy. Sorry, Mr. Cole, he did his homework. Knows exactly what equipment we need, which contracts to pursue, how to compete with the big companies. He's not my boy." Margaret reached for Anna's hand with her four-weekend grip. "Isn't he?" Anna looked at her mother's knowing smile, her father's hopeful expression, the newspaper article that had cost Ethan his empire. Everything inside her felt like it was breaking and healing simultaneously. "I don't know if I can forgive him," she whispered. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting," Margaret said gently. "It's about choosing love over bitterness. And sometimes, sweetheart, the people who hurt us the most are the ones brave enough to change." That night, Anna couldn't sleep. She stood on her childhood bedroom's small balcony, looking out over the town where she'd grown up. Tomorrow, she would have to decide: stay in Ohio, nursing her wounds and her pride, or return to New York and face the man who destroyed her world to rebuild it better. Her phone rang at midnight. Unknown number. "Anna." Ethan's voice was rough, exhausted. "I know you don't want to hear from me, but where are you?" "New York. Outside your apartment building, actually. I know you're in Ohio, but I needed to be somewhere you'd been." Anna closed her eyes, picturing him standing on her fire escape, the same place she'd read his company's files and felt her heart break. "You lost everything," she said. "Not everything. Not yet. Ethan, I don't expect forgiveness, Anna. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that loving you changed me. Not just the guilt or the consequences, but really changed me into someone I can finally respect." Through the phone, Anna could hear the sounds of New York traffic, the city that had brought them together and torn them apart. She thought about the man who'd humiliated her with riddles, the one who'd offered her impossible opportunities, and the one who'd just sacrificed his empire for redemption. "I'm coming back," she said. "Anna, you don't have to. Not for you. For me. Because someone once told me to try being better than myself." The silence stretched between Ohio and New York, between hurt and healing, between the past and whatever came next. Anna watched from the doorway as Ethan did something no billionaire had ever done. He chose love over everything else he'd ever valued. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to build something new from the ashes of what they'd lost. Anna found Ethan where she'd left him 2 weeks ago, in his office at Cole Technologies, surrounded by the ruins of his empire. But everything else had changed. The bustling workspace was half empty now. Desks that once hummed with activity sat abandoned. The digital displays showing global server data had been replaced with "for sale" signs and legal notices. The ping-pong table in the break room was covered with boxes of personal belongings from employees who'd found jobs elsewhere. Ethan sat at his desk with his head in his hands, wearing jeans and a wrinkled shirt that probably cost less than his usual tie. When he looked up and saw Anna standing in his doorway, the expression on his face nearly broke her heart all over again. "You came back. I said I would." He stood slowly, like a man afraid sudden movements might shatter whatever fragile thing existed between them. "Anna, Riley's gone." Anna stepped into the office, noting the empty shelves where awards and accolades used to sit. "I saw the news this morning. Hostile takeover. Board voted her in as interim CEO yesterday. She's already started negotiations to sell the company's assets." Ethan's laugh was hollow. "Turns out public accountability isn't great for stock prices." Anna looked around the office that had once symbolized ultimate success. Now it felt like a mausoleum, beautiful, empty, and haunted by what used to be. "Do you regret it?" "Which part? Destroying my reputation, losing my company, or falling in love with you?" "All of it." Ethan was quiet for a long moment, his eyes studying her face like he was memorizing it. "I regret hurting you. I regret every decision that caused your family pain. But falling in love with you? That's the one thing I got right." Anna felt tears prick her eyes. 2 weeks ago, those words would have felt like manipulation. Now, surrounded by the evidence of everything he'd sacrificed, they felt like truth. My father wants to rebuild Miller Construction. I know. I hope he takes the partnership offer. He will, but not because of guilt or charity. Anna stepped closer, her voice gaining strength. Because you gave him what you took away, the chance to build something meaningful. Anna. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. I destroyed us before we even had a chance. I know you can't forgive. She silenced him with a kiss. It was soft, tentative, nothing like the passion that burned between them in those coffee shop conversations. This was something deeper, forgiveness and hope and the terrifying possibility of starting over. When they broke apart, Ethan's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I don't understand, he said. My mother told me something in the hospital. She said the people who hurt us the most are sometimes the ones brave enough to change. Anna reached up to touch his face, feeling the stubble that spoke of sleepless nights and impossible choices. You changed, Ethan, not just for me, but for everyone you'd hurt. I lost everything. No, you found everything that matters. Anna smiled through her own tears. Integrity, accountability, love. Outside the office windows, Manhattan stretched toward the horizon, full of new possibilities and second chances. Anna could see her reflection in the glass, no longer the scared waitress or the fish-out-of-water analyst, but someone who'd learned that forgiveness was the strongest choice you could make. What happens now? Ethan asked. Now you help my father rebuild his business. Now I finish school and figure out what I want to do with my life. Now we start over, without the lies and the corporate games and the power imbalances. Just Ethan and Anna? Just Ethan and Anna. He pulled her into his arms then, holding her like she was the most precious thing in his world. Which, Anna realized she was. Not because of what he'd lost for her, but because of who they'd both become in the losing. Love stories like this remind us what's possible. Subscribe for weekly inspiration. 3 months later, Anna stood in the rebuilt offices of Miller Construction, watching her father review blueprints for a housing development that would provide affordable homes for 50 families. Ethan was there too, sleeves rolled up, arguing good-naturedly with her father about sustainable building materials. He looked different now, younger somehow, despite the stress lines around his eyes. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something warmer, something real. Coal Technologies had been sold to Riley's consortium for a fraction of its former value. The employees had found new jobs. The shareholders had moved on to other investments. But Ethan Cole had found something worth more than any empire. A second chance at becoming the man Anna had seen hidden beneath all that wealth and power. As Anna watched him laugh at something her father said, she felt her heart full of a different kind of richness. The kind that couldn't be bought or sold or taken away by corporate raiders. The kind that could only be earned through love, forgiveness, and the courage to change. That evening, as they walked through Central Park where their story had really begun, Ethan stopped suddenly and pulled out a small velvet box. Anna Miller, he said, dropping to one knee on the same path where he'd once been an arrogant billionaire playing games with people's hearts. Will you marry a formerly arrogant billionaire who's learned that the only empire worth building is the one we create together? Anna looked down at the man who destroyed her world and rebuilt it better, who'd taught her about forgiveness and shown her what love looked like when it chose sacrifice over selfishness. Yes, she whispered, and meant it with every fiber of her being. Some love stories begin with fairy tales. The best ones begin with truth, grow through forgiveness, and prove that real happily ever afters are built one honest choice at a time.